And then really just the cookware, and it just goes down the line. Then what do I store the food in? What am I brushing my teeth with and putting that in my mouth, and gums, flossing? Then I learned what I put on my skin. 60 to 70% goes in the bloodstream. So I want to be mindful of what goes on my skin. So the bedding, the towels, the clothing, I just kept going. And there's still today, it's getting better, but it's still very difficult to find. This is not readily available, just like the food. And that was part of the reason why I wanted to make the information available and the products available, because I'm like, what busy mom could search 10 months for, a plastic-free pen or something?
Hi, everyone. I'm Wendy Myers. Welcome to the Myers Detox podcast. And actually, I'm Dr. Wendy Myers now. I'm happy to announce I just finished schooling, and I'm actually now officially a naturopathic doctor. So I'll be referring to myself as Dr. Wendy Myers going forward. But yeah, it's really been a lifelong dream. I knew when I was 10 years old that I wanted to be a doctor. And I knew very early on what I wanted to do. Got sidetracked here and there from my passion, what my true calling was. But yeah, it's the first time I've announced that. And so again, I want to thank all you guys for tuning in every week. And the podcast the audience has been growing exponentially. And I've been doing this podcast for almost 9 years, like 9 years now. And we're coming up on episode, I guess, 420 or so. So just really incredibly rewarding. And I just love doing this, love educating you guys. And I just want to thank you for tuning in every week. This week we have Laura Paulisich on the show, and she is a toxin-free living expert. She's going to be talking about how to reduce exposure to health-harming toxins in your home. This is a pretty funny podcast. Laura's really passionate, just like myself, about educating people about toxins and how to make better choices. And so she's the founder of Toxi-Free, and she's all about helping busy families reduce exposure to health-harming toxins in the homes. She's the author of 3 books, sharing her pursuit of toxin-free living and the health and happiness that resulted. And despite starting Toxi-Free at the beginning of the pandemic, she's doubled sales in a couple of years, and she's served thousands of people in their Toxi-Free purchases. And you can learn more about Laura and her website of toxin-free resources at shoptoxifree.com. She's got all kinds of recommendations of all different types of product categories and better toxin-free choices to make. Laura, thanks so much for coming on the show.
What a thrill to be here. Thank you so much. And thank you for all you do to help all of us with toxins.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. But you're here to help too. So why don't you tell us, what got you started on your toxin journey and learning about toxins?
Well, it really started when, I guess, in junior high, when I was diagnosed with the autoimmune disease Hashimoto's, and the doctors just gave me a pill and said, take this for the rest of your life and you're on your way. And my mom, who's a scientist, told me that my thyroid didn't work and that affects metabolism. And I was like terrified then to eat anything. And I would use my babysitting money to bike to the co-op because I thought anything bought there would be healthy. But fast forward many years, I spent my whole life just really struggling, not knowing what to eat, not knowing anything about food, not knowing how to cook. All I knew was I always felt hungry. It was very stressful. My brain would get hijacked by sugar and, the chemicals in foods. And so I thought it has to be this easy. We're biological beings. There must be a biological answer. So I started researching everything I could about cooking and nutrients and food. And when I found out that I would always feel hungry until my body received the nutrients it needed, it was just like I turned the light on to a different life. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is not about me. Like, it's not that something's wrong with me, or I'm just not getting the nutrients. So it totally changed the purpose of food for me. Food was no longer soothing or entertainment. It had a real purpose to nourish me with those nutrients. But then it was hard to find nutrient dense food. You just can't go to the grocery store. And because I had learned that, even grass-fed beef from the purest farmers, the selenium can be different based on Western Canada versus Eastern Canada. So it was hard to find food. And then after that, I didn't want anything messing with those nutrients, so I started thinking, well, what am I going to cook it in? What am I going to store it in? Because I was continuing to read and finding out that there are toxins in our environment that block our endocrine system. I'm like, well, that goes against the whole point of all this effort. So I just kept examining everything to protect those nutrients because they were changing my life so much for the better. I just felt so nourished for the first time. And well, that would have been like 39 years of living. So I was willing to do anything to protect those nutrients.
Yes. And then, I'm glad you mentioned that because so many people go to so much effort to eat an organic diet and healthy food, and they're kind of missing the boat on this toxin influx that they get in so many different areas. And it's just, that's why I do the show, to try to educate people about, what they really need to be thinking about to address their health and not just with the food. And so what were some of the obstacles that you encountered on your journey to kind of like detox your life and improve your health?
Yes. Well, like I said, the first was just finding nutrient dense food with our, diminishing soil, how my favorite people in the world are regenerative farmers, who are providing us such nutrient dense food. And then really just the cookware, and it just goes down the line. Then what do I store the food in? What am I brushing my teeth with and putting that in my mouth, and gums, flossing? Then I learned what I put on my skin. 60 to 70% goes in the bloodstream. So so that's like what I'm eating. So if I'm putting all this effort into the nutrients for food, then I want to be mindful of what goes on my skin. So the bedding, the towels, the clothing, I just kept going. And there's still today, it's getting better, but it's still very difficult to find. This is not readily available, just like the food. And that was part of the reason why I wanted to make the information available and the products available, because I'm like, what busy mom could search 10 months for, a plastic-free pen or something?
Yeah, it can get really overwhelming, like especially when you first start learning about this stuff. You're like, wow, what I'm cooking and what I'm storing my food in, what my like you said, like your sheets and it just goes on and on and on and on. So there's a pretty big learning curve. Can you talk a little bit about overwhelm when people are learning about how to detox their life in their home?
Yeah, I think, it's the thing that I would encourage everyone listening to do is to just return to our natural state. So when we do that, we're rewarded. We are so rewarded. I always think about this, like with our biggest leaders. I'm like, what if they were doing this? Like they would have superpowers, because it's just everything feels better, tastes better, smells better. Life becomes so meaningful, and your belongings have a purpose. And it's just, people are doing it with food. And so they have the skill about thinking about what they're eating and where it comes from. And it's just transferring that skill to other things they're bringing into the home.
Yeah. And so where were some of the places you were surprised to find toxins?
Oh gosh, like well, this was just a recent, and thankfully I'd already switched to everything as natural as possible, but I just recently learned nylon floss, a lot of it has a Teflon coating on it. Just, things like that. Designer handbags having obesogens, wallpaper, vinyl, baby toys, just everything. Those were very surprising to me. Dish soap, the things that I had been taught all along, you just put those in your grocery cart every week because they're necessary. So if I can be people's guinea pig, it's possible to survive without all those things.
Yeah, I mean,
and
that's
much
what,
free,
yeah.
more freeing,
Yeah, and that's why, I had my daughter, she goes to a Waldorf school here in Mexico because they don't use any plastic on anything. They're just using natural materials like wool and using clays and glass, and everything's natural, because you don't think about it, like our environment, it's just everything is plastic, and you're touching that and like maybe drinking from it and doing all these different things. And I think people they don't realize how much it's impacting their health and the health of their children. They're much more vulnerable than us as adults.
Yes. And the just touching anything plastic, it sheds the microplastics and it falls to the floor, and our pets and babies and small children are the ones ingesting it then. So they're even more at risk just because they're there on the floor with it. And that is such a cool school. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's great. She's
amazing.
Learning. She's learning. The school is taught half English and half Spanish, so she's fluent in Spanish now. I wish I could say the same thing about myself, but I'll get her in another year. I'm going to be
learn
fluent.
From her.
I'm going to be fluent. I am. I'm practicing, but yeah, and I think people don't realize that they ingest the equivalent of a credit card in microplastics every week.
It's really shocking. Know.
A week.
1 week, I always think about that and how it's found now in our lungs, in addition to our blood, and even in utero. So it's just, and we don't know what the effects are. I mean, there's a lot of effects, but
and people this is the reason I'm doing this show, is to educate people about these toxins are causing so many of the health issues that we're seeing today, the chronic health issues, the heart disease, the hypertension, the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, diabetes, especially. Toxins are contributing to that in a huge, huge way. And so that's why I'm doing the show. Lots of info on my website about that.
I love how you talk about obesogens. If they're spending so much time, money, effort, energy on weight control, and it could be the toxins that they're not even aware of.
Yeah. And also beating themselves up.
The shame, the guilt,
failing.
Yes.
When it's just like it's like you're fighting this uphill battle when toxins are affecting your pancreas, your blood sugar control, your ability to ingest nutrients, and you get cravings because you're not digesting the food that you're eating. And there's just so many dozens and dozens of factors that
I know. And like I learned that wrinkle-free sheets have formaldehyde, which causes insomnia, which if you're not sleeping, then your body can't work anyway. Yes,
yeah, you're getting fat. You're stressed, you're not sleeping. There's like a million different ways that these toxins directly and indirectly cause us to be overweight. So it's not just the food that people are eating. It's not just their keto diet or high carb diet or what. There's just the diet's just not enough, to lose weight. So is there anything else that listeners should be aware of that you've kind of discovered in your toxin research?
I always just go back to trying to recognize nature in whatever we're surrounding ourselves with. So another thing that's really surprising is clothing and the dyes that go into clothing. And, even how some really big companies have this great effort to be more sustainable and green, but having any fabric brickled or using plastic in it, that's actually worse because it has broken up the plastic already. So then it's becoming microplastics even easier. And anytime we dry the clothing, it's going out into our air and ending up back in our food. And clothing is really a big thing to think about. Just so I'm always questioning, like, where does this color come from? And what exactly is the fiber? And that would be another one. The sheets, the mattresses. I'm really hoping that that's changing with the fire retardants, requirement on mattresses, because that's in our country, that's how people are used to sleeping, and that's really scary too.
And it seems to make sense that that there was such a high smoking rate, say in like the 70s or whatnot, and that rate's certainly gone down now. But people are falling asleep with a cigarette in their hand. That's why they made this law. The smokers,
really?
falling asleep, and then the hand would go down, and like poof, and they just go up and smoke.
No.
But it's like the whole population has to suffer in ingesting these fire retardant chemicals that are so carcinogenic and obesogenic and can interfere in their hormones, just for this small population of people that are, it's like even if your mattress is flame retardant, your sheets and your blanket aren't. So it just kind of doesn't make a tremendous amount of sense.
And I remember listening to an expert in our country talking about disposal of mattresses, televisions, carpet, just what every house is filled with. Those are considered toxic waste, and that's what we're surrounding ourselves with.
It's incredible that those are considered toxic waste.
I know.
They have a lot of TVs have a lot of metals in them and things like that. But
yeah, and they talked about because it's plastic around all of the electronics, that it's such a fire hazard that they have to really douse it with fire retardants. And then the other thing too, I would recommend or encourage people to do is things that are natural, like flowers. You would think, oh my gosh, but 80% of our cut flowers in the US are grown outside of the US. And so they're required to be sprayed when they come in. And most of them are being grown with pesticides, which are harming the workers. They stay on the plant flower, they're harming the florist, and then they're in your home as well. So things that you would think would be natural have to be investigated too.
You have to like uncover so many stones, like your candles and
all the candles,
like
I know.
everything that your the air freshener, like your beauty products. It's just exhausting.
Anything with fragrance, just run the other way. Like
throw those dryer sheets out, please. Those things are so disgusting. The dryer sheet. I'll take the static cling. Like I'll take the static cling. Okay, I don't need all the oils on my towels that make it so they don't absorb water after I shower. I never understood that.
Yes.
They have like hundreds of chemicals in them. It's crazy.
Very like forever chemicals too. So, but the great thing is it's a fun adventure. It's creative. It involves everyone in the family. It's way more fun. You save so much money, and it just feels so good not to be contributing, to all of that anymore. It's the freedom that you get from this. It really is returning to a birthright of true health, true happiness. And until you experience it, it's like you didn't even know you were missing it. So that's why I'm always shouting it from the hilltops.
Yeah, it's kind of like a fish in water. Like you don't know until you know that you live in a toxic chemical soup. you know?
Yes,
But I like how
yes.
you put that. It's very positive because, I think people can feel really overwhelmed or feel like they have to spend a lot of money and, there's just a lot to learn. So how do you make this, more easy and fun for people?
Well, like I said, it is like an adventure, I'm out hunting and gathering for what I want to nourish myself and my surroundings with. And like I said, life gets really simple and pure and so beautiful because the food tastes more delicious, real food, real clothing just nourishes and feels good. And people are always saying, oh my gosh, that's so pretty. And so it's even unexpected, unique style. Plant dyed clothing is a one of a kind, no matter, it's artisan made. And just having really high quality, very few belongings, it uncovers the life that you're meant to live. So it's like you can really serve your purpose and experience what your life was meant to be, hiding under all those belongings.
Yeah. I mean, because I like how you put that because I think people, they deserve to feel good. They deserve to have
Yes.
health. And it is our birthright. And there's just so many, I think, irresponsible companies and corporations that are polluting our environment. We're not being protected. And we really have to take that responsibility for ourselves. And it can be looked at like a joy and something fun and something that you feel really, really good about rather than something that can be, overwhelming. It's like a fun project. It's a lifelong project.
Is. Yes. And the other thing is when you think about how used to consuming we are, I mean, we have no problem getting our credit card out and exchanging and paying for things. That is the power. We are really truly voting with every dollar and cent that we consume and spend. And those companies are going to listen. So it's like all of us, we all have the power to change the direction of things. And everything is connected. I mean, toxin free for me was about my health, but it accidentally was minimalizing and plastic free and no longer contributing to climate change. All of that just, it's all so connected, and it is really joyous and uplifting to be a part of that.
Yes.
So
yeah. And so some people or everyone listening, I'm sure, is, making some efforts to improve their environment and their home and their health and detox. But what if someone in their family is resistant to what they're doing or kind of not in agreement? Do you have any strategies for that? Because I know, like for me, my ex-husband, I became really passionate about detoxing my home and using certain detergents, and he just didn't give a crap about that at all, which is why he's my ex. But no, but it's okay. But I would be, wanting to use, let's say, some natural laundry detergent, and he'd want to use Gain, and then kind of like retoxify the whole laundry area. And then my clothes would smell like, and I'd be like,
yes,
I didn't want that perfume and interfere with my hormones. But I try to educate him about it. And he just, a very brilliant guy, but he just didn't care at all. I'm like, don't you care if your testosterone lowers? I mean, and that's how you get guys' attention, I think, is talk about testosterone and maybe their penis. If like there's the testosterone lower, there's going to be trouble down below. But I don't know. But I've had that seems to be my experience. Trying to get people's attention.
I see this every day, almost by the hour. I mean, this is happening to everyone where there's resistance, and it's usually coming from the husband and or father or sons, or but there's this great book. It's called Slow Death by Rubber Duck. And have you seen that?
I think I have heard of that. I need to check that out.
Rubber Ducky, yes, is so cute. But the men are in Canada, and all they're doing is just looking at the top 10 worst toxins. That's it. I mean, there's thousands, and they're coming, one gets dysregulated, then they pop up another one. It's endless. So they were only looking at the top 10, and they were terrified. They were, learning that it is true. Like the testicles do not descend, and there are things that are happening.
There's a huge problem with people being born like their testicles don't descend, or they're very small, their penises are smaller because they're being so estrogenized by their environment in utero because of pesticides and plastics and other estrogenic toxins.
And they just cleaned out the baby's toys. And I mean, they were just like, talk about a whole makeover. It happened like overnight. They were just like, get this away from my son,
Yeah. Anything you're trying to like convince someone of, you got to find their currency.
Yeah. And, my heart goes out to the males, especially in our country, because I feel like it's a really neglected population. I think females have kind of an advantage because we've always tried to be attractive, and just the women that I know. And so like starving ourselves, not eating things is just really pretty normal from my generation, where they are used to feeling hungry. Whereas the men that I've noticed, I mean, they're hungry and that's a basic need, and they get something to eat. Like, I don't want to feel hungry. And so I just feel like they've never been nourished. And the thing is if they could see from down the road of what happens, life is so much simpler. You've saved so much money. You don't have to get in your car, fight traffic, go to the store every week to buy these, things that you're bringing in. And life is just so much more fun and easy and tastes better. It smells better. I mean, the men, if they knew what it was like, they would be leading this whole charge, because I think it's something that all of us were born into. So it sounds expensive. It sounds hard. It sounds foreign. And it's just like, don't trigger me with these things, like just give me what I'm used to. And I could be all wrong about that, but I feel my heart goes out to them, because I just know that they would love it more than the women would.
Yeah. So what are your resources for helping people live more toxic free? Do you have like a list of resources somewhere on your website to keep people started?
Yes. Well, I mean, that's what toxic free is. That is my passion, is bringing this to people. I feel like if there were, toxic frees everywhere, which we have everything online, if people had access, if it was available, then it would just be so much easier. I mean, I spent, like I said, 9 months trying to find a plastic free pen, and I found it, and it's amazing. And it's the only pen you'll ever need. And, 61 billion disposable pens just in our country are, in the landfill right now. Like, that is such
I never even
beautiful,
thought about the pens.
easy.
I never even thought about that. Gosh.
And then
you don't. There's just so many sources.
Yeah, and you don't have hundreds of them just in your drawers. Like, it's just, life is so much easier and simpler, and it's more tidy. You don't have mental distractions. I mean, all of this really brings in all of those, minimalist rewards. And my gosh, my husband, he should be the spokesperson, because he's like, life is so easy. It saves so much money. Just like by making our own, and we have classes like this too. We just put a class out called Do It Yourself Everything. And it is because over 10 years now, I just found it easier to make my own, cleaner. And so I've been using the same glass bottle, with infused organic vinegar, organic lemons, and we just spray that on everything, and we're alive, and I haven't had to go to a grocery store in years, and I haven't contributed to the plastic waste. And a really cool thing now is that we buy our lemons from a farmer that we've, developed this relationship with. And so she'll send us a box of lemons, and we'll make it for the year, and we just sit together and cut those up and talk, and it's all done in about a half hour. It's so easy, and we've got a year's worth of it.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah, because it's so much cheaper and so much healthier. I think people, they don't realize how easy it can be to also like make your own beauty products, make your own lotion. That it's fun. It's a good activity to do with your children or your sister or what have you.
Yes. And then developing the relationships, like we're supporting those farmers. They're like family, now. And it's just, all of it feels so good. So I'm rewarded over and over with that.
Yeah. And so what are some of the other resources? You mentioned like you've done research and you have kind of like suggestions for people for different product categories and things.
Yeah. So I don't think there's anything else like this in our country for sure. But so Toxi-Free, just the intention is to share everything that I've done in this 13-year obsession, I guess you could call it. So it's, it talks about the food. I mean, we sell food, we sell all the cookware, all of the olive wood utensils, clothing, it's all there. And we have classes and consulting, and it's kind of like coaching in the products. So even like just reading through the descriptions, you start thinking about things. Oh, I'd never thought about that. Like that, and nature has so many solutions. Like for instance, a comb, just a simple thing like a comb, a natural comb was almost always made out of reclaimed horn. And so the horn acts as a natural anti-static, and it distributes the oils more naturally down your hair. Well, a plastic comb has a mold, and they get little snakes, and they actually tear and do damage to your hair. So, just something like that. It's just a return back to the artisan made comb that's beautiful and will last your whole life, and you'll keep track of it. And so, we have we have hundreds of products.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, and that's so helpful, because they're like, when I first started my journey doing this, you're just like, God, I have to, like, how many hours do I have to spend researching, Q-tips or like natural Q-tips or find the store that they're at and read the reviews on them.
Yes.
Like you just find like every little tiny thing, your makeup or whatever, you want to make the right decision on and what you're buying. And it does take a lot of like time and energy and research to find the right things that work for you. Sometimes you just have to buy stuff that doesn't work. I mean, I've got a lot of natural conditioners and other natural products that don't really perform like their toxic counterparts that we really like, but they are out there. But yeah, so that's great that you've done a lot of this footwork already.
Yes. Yeah. And I definitely knew all along that I wanted to share that with others, because, it's just, time is so precious, and it's hard when you are bringing beautiful offspring into the world. So
yeah. And what is your website again?
It's Shop Toxi-Free, and Toxi is with a Y.
Okay. shoptoxifree.com.
Yep.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, Laura, thank you so much for coming on the show. And that was really fun. And so everyone go check out Laura's website, shoptoxifree.com, to learn more about all of her product recommendations and DIY, making natural products and things around your house. And I'm Wendy Myers. Thanks for tuning in to the Myers Detox podcast, where every week I want to bring you people from all walks of life to help you, on your detox journey and help you make healthier choices and educate you about why you need to be living more of a toxin-free life. It will pay huge dividends in your health because you deserve to feel good. So thanks for tuning in. I'm Wendy Myers of Myers Detox. I actually Dr. Wendy Myers now. I actually just became a naturopathic doctor. So it's the first time I've announced that now. So guys, thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you very soon.
The Myers Detox podcast is created and hosted by Wendy Myers. This podcast is for information purposes only. Statements and views expressed on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Wendy Myers and the producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. Individuals on this podcast may have direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.